Get your boss in there to do a bite check. Most of the time is it occlusal forces because you've lasered, you've checked for calculus, you checked for decay. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's occlusal forces. You take those occlusal forces out, you're having good results. The laser should work 100% of the time. So what you can do is treat a pocket for 10 or 15 seconds, go treat a few other pockets, kind of like you come in from the sun, and then go back to that pocket until you have that fresh bleeding or until there's nothing on your tip. That's how you know you're done. I learned if you can build trust with your patient, you make sure that they're sitting up, you look them in the eye, and if you truly believe in what you're recommending, they'll do whatever.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of 2 hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of 2 hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tale of 2 Hygienists, episode number 284. My name is Andrew.
And this is Michelle, and welcome to our podcast. Welcome back or welcome for your first time. I don't know. We're happy you're here either way. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because we would love that very much. Feel very sing-songy.
Yeah, it's very nice. I feel very congested, so I just won't talk as much.
Yeah, that sucks. Your first cold in what, like a year at least?
I mean, yeah, more than that probably, but which is weird because I still wear the mask. I still do all the hand hygiene. I still do all of those things. Like I haven't stopped doing any of that. So I'm like, oh.
It's always so crazy where you pick up these things.
Which one of my dirty children can I blame
It's
this
always on? Those little daycare germ children.
Little rats.
Your most perfect children. I will not let you talk about my nieces and nephews.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. But yeah, welcome back, everyone. We're so happy that you're here. As we're recording this, we're actually, what's the date today? 6/16 or something.
We're going to be going to ADHA. It's our first conference.
Hooray!
When was our last one together was Chicago Midwinter 2020.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
I went to one more right afterwards, and then the world shut down, and that was it. I got to tell you, I got some mixed feelings.
I have no mixed feelings. I'm excited. I'm going to hug everyone that is accepting hugs. I will wear the mask and I will do all the stuff. And I will try and remember to bring my little spray that has the emollients for all that so that you guys can all try it.
So you can spray your face down?
So I can spray my face and my neck and whatever people hug on me. It doesn't matter. So hug away, guys. Hug away is what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited.
Well, I do think that you're more prepared because you are on the road all the time.
I see dozens of people in the offices every freaking day.
Yeah.
So, and then people in the cars. Yeah, I feel like I'm already out there. I feel like I've been out there pretty much since a couple months into this job, have just been, Atlanta all the way down to Naples and all that kind of stuff. But you've been a recluse this whole time. So
I really have. I went from, what was it last year, 2019. I think I hit 170 days gone from home, to 2020 where I didn't leave my house for 170 days. So I got mixed feelings. Yeah. I don't know. I'm really, really excited to see everybody. But I also, and this has nothing to do with germs and COVID and everything. It has more to do with, I'm not sure if I'm mentally prepared for everyone's energy.
Oh, yeah. Because we did talk about that before. Here's what I don't know what's going to happen. My vision for you is that you're actually going to thrive during the day, but you're going to crash so hard. And you're going to do the whole Irish goodbye that we talked about a couple episodes back, where you're like, all right, I'm gone. And Amir's like, where'd Michelle go? And like, well, I think she went to bed and it's 9:30. So yeah, sounds about right for her.
Yeah. But I am excited. I attended OSAP a few weeks ago. It was virtual and there were so many people where I was like, oh, I wish I could hug you. I wish I could have this conversation at your booth right now. Like, so I'm kind of ready for that. But
did you win an award there?
I might have.
Hold on. I'm not, that wasn't a prompt. That was I think I did see something on social media, but I wasn't really paying attention.
Wow.
You didn't tell me about that.
Always so supportive.
I wasn't even listening.
I think I did tell you. But yes, I did win the Emerging Infection Control Leader Award with OSAP this year, which is honestly, I am the most proud of this award. So thank you. And thank you for everybody that said congratulations online. I appreciate you.
Oh, that happened too? Did I miss a whole?
It did. You did. It's fine.
Wow.
I also had a birthday. I don't know if you caught that too.
Yeah, I talked to you that whole day. That morning, I sent you a message and said, happy birthday. I was hoping to be the first one to say happy birthday. And then we didn't send you a gift because you were moving and all that other stuff.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did win an award. So thank you.
So everyone, if you are here or tomorrow going to be here or whatever, if you're at ADHA 2021 in Phoenix, we are doing some podcasting. So make sure you follow us on social media so that you can see where we're going to be at. We also have some giveaways that we're doing. So make sure you follow our social media there as well. From what I understand, we're going to have a table outside of the exhibit hall. So you guys will probably have plenty of opportunity to find us and say hi. Let's take some pictures. Michelle also wants all the hugs.
Yeah, and kind of.
I will take all of the hugs on Michelle.
Andrew will take all the hugs. Listen, I don't know. I let me step into this. I definitely don't want to shake people's hand. I have so much anxiety now. But I'll be at the mouthwash booth if you want to see me have a mental breakdown. Come find me there. And I am speaking on teledentistry on, I think it's Friday. So if you're in that, that's awesome. But I am excited to see you. And in this episode, you were actually not on this interview with us, but I invited Joy Raskie on to the podcast to talk about lasers with us. It's been a minute since we broached this topic, and it was a really great podcast to learn about things. And I mean, you just love people who can just, any question you throw at them, they got an answer for it. Love those kind of people. So yeah, enjoy this episode with Joy Raskie.
Before we get to the interview, we want to say a big thank you to Paradise Dental Technologies, or PDT, for supporting the continuing education portion of this podcast for so many years. If you do not know already, many of our full-length episodes count for CE. You'll find the links in the show notes, or you can sign up for our newsletter by going to ataleoftwohygienists.com. When you sign up for the newsletter, we will periodically send out links to shows that have expiring CE courses attached. And none of this could be possible without the support of the amazing people over at PDT. So check out their hygiene and other instruments at pdtdental.com. That's pdtdental.com. Now, on to the interview.
Well, welcome everybody to another fabulous episode interview. I'm so excited about this, even though I can't practice lasers in the great state of South Carolina. I still love to learn about them. And so we brought one of the queens of laser education on, Joy Raskie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about my favorite thing, lasers.
I know. So we did like this survey at the end of last year and asking our listeners, like, what do you want to hear more about? And they said lasers. I was like, oh, I'm going to ask Joy ASAP.
Yay.
So welcome. So tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you're doing.
I'm Joy. I'm a dental hygienist. I have been practicing since 2003. So is that 18 years now? Oh my goodness. I graduated hygiene school in Iowa at Hawkeye Community College. I moved out.
Oh, Dr. Bogey, about to be Dr. Bogey's school. Yeah.
Dr. Bogey and I are classmates. We graduated the same year. We went through hygiene school together. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Can we just take a little moment to digress? And I would love to know what Emily was like
in hygiene school.
A fellow student.
I would assume that you probably already know this, but she was straight A. Like the teacher asked a question, Emily was raising her hand, knew every answer.
Of course.
Nobody hated her though. Like she still does. She knows everything about everything. But yeah, she was wonderful. She was absolutely fantastic. I love Emily.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it. I did not know that little tidbit of information about you too. That's great.
Yeah. Now we both do speaking, and it's just such a small world. When I ran into her, I think we ran into each other at RDH under one roof when I was with Dentsply. And anyway, she's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, That's awesome, man. What a champion class then. Two like powerhouses like you come out. That's awesome.
Yeah, and now she's running the whole hygiene program. So they're in good hands, and I know that 100%.
Yes, absolutely. And so when did you like delve into lasers? And I mean, have you always been able to practice with lasers where you are now?
Yeah, so I graduated at 21 years old. I moved out to Colorado, didn't know a soul, started working in hygiene, and I would say I was working maybe 9 or 10 years before I got into laser. I researched them maybe 2 years into my career. My boss gave me a magazine and said, hey, they're looking at lasers. I looked into it, but I just didn't feel there was a lot of research and I didn't want to go down that path. So later a laser rep came in and I actually wanted my boss to get him off the electrosurge, which is kind of a cutting tool that lasers would help the patient with faster healing. So I made my boss go to one of those dinners and the guy talked the entire time about lasers and hygiene. And I had no idea. My boss looked at me and was like, get whatever laser you want. You're going to be using it. So he flew me to California. I learned all about the laser. I came back and just started using it on my patients. I feel like I was fortunate where I worked for a general dentist. I was the only hygienist, and I had already been at that practice for 7 years before I got laser. So I'd already been doing perio on all my patients. So when I got laser, I got to test it up against Arrestin and what I was doing already with. I was the only person seeing everybody.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your own little anecdotal, like experiment in your office. I love that.
I always experiment on patients with home care, with everything. So I was like, okay, let's see what this laser has. Let's see what this magic wand is, because I feel like everybody, you go to training, you hear about something, you're like, does it really work? Is this like my lightsaber? I was like, okay, let's try it. And I started asking patients, what are you feeling? How does this feel? I, of course, got, oh, this hurts. And I would change my technique. Oh, I don't feel what you're doing. Okay, great. Now I know how to correctly make sure I'm using it right. And I kind of felt that if something didn't work, how can I make sure it works every time? So that's where I would elicit feedback. I would talk to my boss. My boss is like, well, why don't we try changing the settings? Why don't we, I asked my patients, what do you feel? I feel some warmth. Crank up the laser a little bit. Well, now I kind of feel tingles. Okay. And then it would work all the time. Or if, something wasn't working and I kept lasering it and it didn't work. Oh, maybe could it be occlusal forces with perio? Maybe that's why the pocket's not healing. So sometimes it wasn't just necessarily my laser, but looking at all things. So yeah.
Wow. I just want to say, what an amazing environment to work where you and your doctor are partners in care.
Yes.
I think that says, anytime I talk to hygienists, and I had a doctor I worked for that was always like, hey, read this article, thought you'd like it. And I'm like, wow, thank you so very much for thinking that you care about my education so I can treat your patients better. But to then take that a step further and then have somebody that you're going to training, CE with, encouraging the training, that's really going to make sure that the patients are successful and they have these long-term outcomes and you two are working together. It's chef's kiss, right?
It is. My boss has been my mentor. A big shout out to Gary Hagan in Colorado. He's still practicing. He hired me. I was 23 years old. I wasn't quite sure of everything I was doing in hygiene. And he really roped me in and said, hey, we take perio very seriously. He supported, we were doing SRPs, even if they just had a lot of fours. He's like, we got to get them on a plan. He's like, bleeding is not okay. And he's like the best doctor for a hygienist, right?
Right. Yes. Oh, can we clone him?
I know. I feel that though. A lot of people know Colorado is a very free state. I could own my own practice as a hygienist. A lot of doctors here support their hygienists. They pay for them to go to laser trainings. I know that for sure because I see it come through on my end. But I also see when the doctors come, they bring their whole hygiene teams. They come with their hygienists. I feel in Colorado for sure, everybody's just really supportive. And when you have that cohesive relationship, it just makes the whole office run through. Because on my end, what I do for him, he really trained me how to detect decay. And we can diagnose here, but even when you can't necessarily diagnose, even writing it on a little sticky note for your boss, hey, I think there's some caries, a cavity. I think there's a suspicious area on this tooth. It really, I mean, you're in there for an hour. The doctor's in there for 5 minutes. So he really worked with me. If he found something that I didn't find, I got back in the mouth and looked for it. He just empowered me, really.
That's what it's about. It's the empowering. So, okay, let's talk about lasers. Because again, I come from a very ignorant place. I like to take CE, but I never get to go and use it clinically because I can't do that in South Carolina. Cough, cough, get it together, South Carolina. So can we kind of just get to the foundation? So if this is somebody's at first introduction into lasers, what would we need to know about lasers? I always think the first is that it's an acronym. I find that very interesting. But outside of that,
laser is an acronym for light amplification. So if you turn on a laser, light comes out. You're going to amplify the laser. How does it make the light come out? You're going to amplify what hygienists use for diode lasers by plugging your laser into the wall. Electricity is going to flow into that laser unit. It's going to stimulate the inside of your laser to emit light, to emit radiation. So laser is on the electromagnetic spectrum, just like visible light, the sun, x-rays, we put lead vests on. Lasers are on the opposite side where you have radio waves, microwaves. They're all invisible. They're all safe. Honestly, your cell phone probably has more harmful radiation than a laser. So lasers are a form of light, and each laser is a specific wavelength. So if you take those wavelengths, and there's a chart that has different tissue components. So where hygienists, kind of their sweet spot with lasers is usually diodes. If you take those wavelengths, 800, 900 nanometer wavelengths, talking about a billionth of a meter, very small wavelength. If you take those up on this chart, they're highly absorbed in melanin, pigment, and hemoglobin, blood. So I like to teach in my courses that if you have a healthy mouth come in, so maybe before COVID, we used to have nice pink, healthy mouths come in. When your patient doesn't see you for a couple years, what happens to the gum? Is pink gum? Michelle, you tell me what would happen if someone didn't come in for 2 years.
Most likely it would definitely turn a dark red, be very swollen, very bulbous, would bleed very easily, probably have a probing depth and some bone loss around it.
Yeah. So you have blood, hemoglobin, what the laser's attracted to, because usually there's some bleeding in those pockets, and the pigment, the melanin, we went from pink light to darker colored red. So you can take a laser into this tissue and it'll be attracted by the dark disease. And we teach in hygiene, we use very low settings and it won't hurt any of the pink healthy tissue. So that's what I fell in love with when it came to hygiene, because I was like, okay, well, if I put other products in the pockets, it goes into the bloodstream. It can just get into the entire body. If I take a laser into the mouth, it'll only be attracted to the dark disease, but do nothing to the pink healthy tissue. And sometimes you take it in and it doesn't do anything because there's no bacteria in there.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
My little brain. So I have suffered from melasma for years, and I had IPL. So a solid decade ago is when I started this journey. Thank you, birth control. And that was one of the things that always stuck out to me was that melanin, that I was attracted to the dark colors. And they put the fear of God in me about going in the sun prior to it. So is there any, I guess with those, and I'm just talking with no information behind this, but I'm assuming if we turned that up, that would burn me. Same with the lasers in the mouth. If we turned it up too high and there was too much pigmentation or there wasn't enough and we still turned it up too high, we would cause some injury?
Oh, absolutely. You can definitely use the laser in a wrong way. If you crank it up too high, doctor or hygienist, anybody, a doctor should have training so they know how to use it. But if you see the tissue turning black or charring, you're going up to the 200 degrees Celsius, and you can have recession. You can hurt the patient if you don't have proper technique in the pocket. Let's say some of the laser energy is going into the tooth. You can pit and crack the tooth and have unwanted effects as well. You can hurt implants because you can use lasers around implants. You can hurt implants. So yeah, absolutely. You can hurt somebody.
Oh, wow. So I'm assuming with training, this is where, like you said, you were kind of like doing this experiment. I say that quote unquote, like you had the training and then you were testing out where you were going to put the settings per the patient's feedback. Has that come along a lot farther now so that like they give you maybe, we love a recipe in dentistry, don't we? Like if you have X amount of pockets, this is where you'll be. If you have this much pigment, this is where you'll be. Or is it a little bit still more like wild, wild west with it?
Well, believe it or not, Colorado, back when I started in lasers in 2007 or 8, we didn't have a requirement for training. So my boss literally gave me the device and put a patient in my chair, and I started using it, and I was like sweating underneath my lab coat. I'm like,
I can imagine.
My patient's like,
oh my gosh,
this is a little uncomfortable. So, I kind of just, I wing it a lot. I'm a bullshitter. Can we say that on a podcast?
Yes, you can.
We've done enough laser for today, so I'm just going to let you go. And I called my husband bawling on the phone. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. He called my boss and left him a message and said, Joy will not use that laser unless you send her for training. So he flew me to California 2 or 3 weeks later. That's how quick I got training. I came back, I learned from my training, and still, even let's say ultrasonics, you learn how to use an ultrasonic, but you come back and your ultrasonic in hygiene school, your ultrasonic your first day, your ultrasonic can 1 year, 2 years, 5 years later, we just get better with probing. I remember a patient told me, 5 years in, he's like, Joy, I just wanted to tell you that when you now probe, I barely feel you. I was like, what was it like before? And he goes, well, I could feel your probing a little bit. So just like with laser, we get better because it's a new tool. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not necessarily the wild, wild west. I mean, I really have a hygiene focus in my trainings because I'm a hygienist, right?
Right.
I just teach people, this is the feedback you want to elicit from your patient. I highly encourage you to ask, what are you feeling? And then if you don't get the results, like at your 6-week reevals, or if you're doing 3 a month, they come back. If you're not getting the results, if you don't get 6mm pockets to go to 3s, and I say that's what you should get. Like in 6 weeks, you should get all your 6s to go to 3s, 7s to 4s, 8 to 5 or 4mm. If you don't get that, let's explore. Did you miss any calculus? Then, let's check. Are there any bad fillings or bad crowns? Is there leaking bacteria in there? If all of that is good, let's laser again. 3 months down the road, if you're not 3 months after that, hopefully they're on a shorter recall from you doing an SRP. Get your boss in there to do a bite check. Most of the time is it occlusal forces because you've lasered, you've checked for calculus, you checked for decay. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's occlusal forces. You take those occlusal forces out, you're having good results. The laser should work 100% of the time. So.
Well, that's just such a call to I wouldn't say necessarily call to action, but just a critical thinking, and the way to get a patient healthier is so multifactorial that we can't just be like, well, that laser didn't work. Like, let's then look at some other things. And can I assume that if it went from like an 8 to a 5 without bleeding, would you be okay with that?
Absolutely. That is healthy. I had a 10mm pocket on the distal of 31 distal lingual. And in 3 weeks, I got that 10 to go to a 4. Did I heal back bone? No. Did I have
got attachment?
Yeah. The laser attracts and stimulates fibroblasts as well as osteoblasts. Osteoblasts, the bone forming cells, take a little bit longer, usually a few years. You see the bone growth. But with the fibroblasts, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I had that patient on a 2-month recall. About 4 months down the road, it turned back to a 6, but the 6 was not bleeding. Now, I look back on his perio charts from like back in the 90s. He had been coming to the office as long as I've been alive. My boss has been practicing almost 40 years, and I'm going to be 40 next year. So he's been practicing as long as I've been alive. But you can, like, if a 6 is not bleeding, or an implant, if there's a 5 or a 6 is not bleeding, that's healthy. They don't need to be lasered.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many reasons that we do laser. I'm imagining doctors, like you said, they might be doing it in their regeneration, like surgery. So even around, I've heard a lot of people use it with implants and peri-implantitis. Maybe they are doing flap and use it as like a tool in their surgical procedures. But for hygienists, what's the difference between this activated and is it non-activated tip?
Yeah, we kind of call it initiated versus uninitiated. That's it.
There you go. That's the verbiage.
The
I was
lingo.
looking for. Yeah, that was the lingo.
You know,
I don't know the colloquialisms of lasers as well.
This gets into pretty much state law. So pretty much if you go to your state law, and I have them all. So if you want to know your state law, you just email me. You probably have it in the, listing.
Show notes.
Yeah,
yes.
Show notes.
Yeah.
Email me or go to my website, send me a message on my contact page. All the state laws, if you know if you're a curettage state or a non-curettage. If you can do curettage, in Colorado you can, a lot of states you can do an initiated tip. So what that means is when you're doing the post-procedure SRP laser, like if you're having 5, 6, 7 millimeter pockets, deeper pockets, you can initiate the tip, have it attracted to something dark, like a piece of blue articulating paper. You could attract it to something black colored. You can also put it in a wood block. You can initiate it, go in the pocket, aim the laser into the tissue, and it should attract diseased necrotic tissue. Now, not saying you're non-curettage. So I know for sure I teach a lot in Texas. They're non-curettage. I was just on the horn today with someone from Minnesota. They're a non-curettage state. If you can't do non-curettage, that doesn't mean you can't use the laser post-SRP. It just means you can't pre-initiate your tip. Even if you're a curettage state, you don't have to pre-initiate your tip. What, Michelle, is down in deep disease pockets? Like what would you find down in a 6 millimeter pocket?
Granulation tissue, lots of heme,
lots of blood,
anaerobic bacteria.
Yes,
yeah.
You have darker colored bacteria that produce iron. It makes them darker in color. So if you take the laser down in that pocket and it's not initiated, it's kind of like these little pieces of blue articulating paper in the pocket. So the laser could be attracted to those dark disease bacteria and it could become self-initiated. I'm using my air quotes. You can't see that on the podcast. But if it happens to become self-initiated, I teach right out of the laser books that as a hygienist or what the laser is doing, you're decontaminating. You are not cutting the tissue because you're using a super low setting. Like a doctor would use over twice as much power to cut the tissue, to do a gingivectomy, to do a frenectomy, to actually cut and remove tissue. They have to use twice as much. So if you can use laser in your state, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'll diverge and do that little section. If you can use laser and you're a non-curettage, you can still do some, a self-initiated tip as long as you talk to your boss and say, hey, if the laser becomes initiated because dark bacteria, I'm not cutting the tissue because I'm using a very low setting. Can I use the laser? And most doctors that come through my course are like, absolutely, we want our hygienist to do it. As a hygienist, though, I really encourage you, have your talk with your boss about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would fully support that. Can Texas use a laser?
Yes, Texas can use a laser.
Oh my gosh, South Carolina. Oh my God.
But they can't numb a patient up and...
Oh God.
They're even going to be using teledentistry. Like teledentistry is now to the governors in Texas.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Glad to hear that because what the hell. But that is, okay, I'm going to have to read my state practice act. even though I am leaving South Carolina, still, I need to know just in case. I am going to carry a license here still, but I just need to know.
Their board told me they were trying to get it passed. And this was pre-COVID that when I reached out to every state board, I wanted to cross my T's and dot my I's. They told me they wanted to work on changing that. So Indiana last July, they passed it so hygienists can use laser. So Florida is now trying to pass it. I literally wrote up a big thing for them just a few weeks ago, back in May of 2021. It depends when you're listening to this podcast. So hopefully Florida will change that. They are really gung-ho there, and that would be a big state. And a state I want to do trainings, I want to travel there. Who doesn't want to go to Florida?
Yes. I would love if you could come to South Carolina too. I just can't I'm sorry, I love all you Floridian hygienists, but I just can't let Florida get us before. Like, oh my gosh. All right. If I understand correctly, let me just recap so I don't stress out so much about the fact that my state sucks. So we're taking an initiated or uninitiated. Is that
good? Yes, correct.
Yeah. Uninitiated tip. And are you doing full mouth with this? Are you doing spot? Like, what is the protocol? Because I will say, like, when I was leaving my perio practice, we probably had for a full year, LANAP. We had that whole LANAP thing, and that was a big thing. Like, it was a full mouth, like no questions asked, full mouth. And that stressed me out quite. I mean, now I'm not less stressed because I know a little bit more, but that stressed me out, that whole protocol. So what is it that hygienists are able to do? I mean, is it worthy of spot treatment, like our non-surgical where we're like 1 to 3 teeth, or is it, and then we can get to, state practice acts and coding, because that's also something I'm curious about.
Any and all of the above, Michelle. It really depends on maybe how much time you have, because not all of us have as much time as we want. Some people are packed for time. So you do what you can. So, let's say somebody was in for a full quad of SRP. Obviously, let's say they had some 6s, some 5s, some 4s, and then you have 3s and 2s and 1s maybe. Let's say, for instance, we're on the upper right. Let's say number 3 on both the mesiolingual, discolingual, both have 6s, but the straight lingual has a 3. Does that mean that the 3 does not have bacteria in it just because it's a 3? No,
definitely not.
So ideally, we want the 6s to go to 3s. So you would go in there with the laser, you kind of go down to the base of the pocket, you come back a little bit because you don't want to be right at the bone, and you decontaminate. You rub that laser tip against the pocket wall, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get the entire surface area, all the coal area, everything. Then what you could do while you're going around to the next pocket is swipe that laser around that 3 millimeter, but just for 1 or 2 seconds. Just go around there and then focus your time on the 6s. So what I loved about laser, I was an Arrestin fool, and there's nothing wrong with Arrestin. I still use Arrestin in furcations and implants, like, throw the kitchen sink at certain things.
Yeah.
But Arrestin, I had to be so site specific. Like I had to pick and choose. I couldn't put it in every single pocket. With my laser, I could take my one tip that you paid, let's say $7 or $8 for. You take your one tip and you go around every single pocket. So at my 6-week reevals, my 6s went to 3s, my 3s went to 2s, my 2s went to 1s. I felt like I pretty much sterilized, decontaminated every single pocket. But I had that extra time. I would say that probably took me 3 to 4 minutes for the mouth. Now, if you just wanted to hit the 5s and 6s, the ones that really need that extra stimulation, maybe you might spend a minute and just go into each pocket for 15 to 30 seconds. People ask me, well, how do you know how long to be in there? That's a common question that you might be thinking, or people listening. That's a great question where the laser tells you, it's kind of the laser tissue interaction. If you see some fresh bleeding coming out of the pocket, really kind of more of a bright red color, not like a burgundy, because that would be, hey, there's still some stuff in there. If you see some bleeding coming out and you pull your tip out of the pocket and you don't see any of that granulation, necrotic tissue on there, you know you're done. Okay. Some pockets are like a couple swipes. I mean, 3 to 5 seconds. Other pockets, 30 seconds. Another pocket, maybe a minute. But you remember the laser is also heat seeking. So if you're in a pocket and you don't want to give, this is my terminology. I say this is Joy's term. You don't want to give people a laser sunburn. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I don't know if I coined it.
No, but I love it.
So if you go out into the sun, Michelle, which you're not allowed to do because you just said your IPL doctor was like, no more sun damage.
Having it. She ain't having it. I spent too much money on the skin. No.
If you go out into the sun and you're out there too long and you had a sunburn, what happens to that sunburn? Does it hurt the next day? Does it hurt that night? If you're in the pocket too long, like if you're in there a minute, you can heat it up and cause kind of a laser sunburn. The patient's going to tell you, like they come in the next week for a different quadrant or a half mouth. They're like, Michelle, I was really sore for 4 or 5 days. I have had this feedback. Like I told you, I figured out what to do right and wrong. You can be in there too long. So what you can do is treat a pocket for 10 or 15 seconds, go treat a few other pockets, kind of like you come in from the sun, and then go back to that pocket until you have that fresh bleeding or until there's nothing on your tip. That's how you know you're done.
That's kind of like how I use my ultrasonic or my airflow or something like that. I go back to those deeper areas. Am I seeing blood come out with that irrigation? If so, I'm sticking around for a little bit longer.
Yes,
that kind of
exactly. Like, do you want to take your ultrasonic, just keep going over a piece of calculus or kind of hit it, maybe go back over it, you know?
Yeah. I don't think there's any evidence to support it, but I definitely feel that that's exactly what, I give it a warning. Like, I'm coming back for you, you MFer. I'm coming for you. And then I go back and I come back and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
She means business.
I always felt that way with the ultrasonic, and you're right. Like, I didn't read research, but I was like, okay, it is spraying out water, but I know that it heats it up if I'm just going over that same area and same area and same area. Like, I might go back to a few other areas, maybe take my file, maybe take a different ultrasonic tip. So yeah.
Yeah. So can I paint a picture? So if you have a few areas and you're saying it maybe takes a minute, maybe 3 to 4 minutes. So let's say we have a patient that comes in, they're pretty routine with their 6-month recall, which also has no science to back it up. But okay, let's insurance wise, 6 months, they're coming in. All of a sudden, like it's the holidays, mother-in-laws are in town, they're stressed out, and they're just a mess when they see you for that recall. Would you still do quote unquote a prophy, even though they're probably not, they're more of a 43, 46. Would you do that and then bring them back for laser? Or would you just like break out the laser and use that during therapy?
Well, you need to use the laser right away. You do not just have them come back just to do laser, but you can have them come back again just for another stimulation dose of the laser. Like I told you, worked for a really amazing man that we would not let my 6-monthers had no bleeding. Like, you're a 2, 3, or 4-monther, but let's say, I'll restate that so it works for me and I feel comfortable. Let's say I had a 3-monther come in and they're consistently seeing me, but you know what? We have some bleeding and things are kind of just starting to open up a little bit, but they don't require an SRP. Like, I don't want to go the SRP route. We didn't talk about this, but I use the laser pre-procedurally to decontaminate. I do a laser bacterial reduction. We can talk about that later. But then I go around my ultrasonic. I go around with some hand scalers, make sure that I did my job. And then you can do a whole mouth with the laser where it quote unquote becomes initiated. I used a numbing mouthwash. I would have my patient use a numbing mouthwash prior to the cleaning. And then I would have them do a numbing mouthwash before laser because it wears off in like 30, 45 minutes. And then for a whole mouth, I would just go around and treat the deeper inflamed pockets. And usually those are on the back teeth, usually interproximal. And I might spend 4 minutes and then I charge out differently too. Okay, depends on how long I'm with my patient, but I would maybe charge out a whole mouth of laser for like $200. How much did I decontaminate? Where I might charge out for an SRP with just the laser part alone. I would do $100 a quadrant. So that would be $400 a mouth. So I kind of figured, hey, I'm not doing every single quadrant. You can kind of pick and choose your fees. There's no special fee. There's no special way to do the laser. Let's say I had one bleeding pocket. I have one or two. If it's an interproximal, the other interproximal might need to get laser too. That will take me, Michelle, like 30 seconds to do. You can add that in whenever. You could switch gears. You could switch gears when you're doing that and do an SRP 1 to 3 teeth. Then that day, do the laser, charge out for the SRP, charge out for the laser, have them come in for the rest of their cleaning, the rest of their adult prophy, if you want to call it that.
Well, one day we're going to have a better term for this. We will, hopefully. And can I ask what that conversation sounds like with a patient? Because I'm sure a lot of pushback come with a lot of people that are not in practices where maybe it's not fee for service, maybe they're very used to insurance. And do you kind of give them that information up front? So like, for instance, I did in my fee for service practice, like this does change your appointment. I am about to do some services based on the level of disease that I'm seeing in your mouth today. This means that that's not going to be the normal amount charged out. Here is your fee schedule for that, which did suck. I hate having that conversation and it definitely delayed me. But like, what does that sound like for you when you're doing that?
I had a lot of training with my boss on it because, at 23 years old, I didn't feel comfortable. It's like, oh my gosh, you have to do a deep cleaning, SRP, whatever you want to call it. I learned if you can build trust with your patient, you make sure that they're sitting up, you look them in the eye, and if you truly believe in what you're recommending, they'll do whatever. I tell them, hey, things are a little different today. I'm finding that, hey, you've gone a little bit longer since the last time I saw you. Went 3 extra months. I know that may not seem like a lot to you, but what I'm seeing today is I'm seeing a lot of bleeding. You heard me say 4. You heard me say bleeding. We need to do a different type of a cleaning. Your insurance out of pocket, usually it's covered. Today it's going to be an extra $75. I'm going to get in there, get all this infection out, take my laser in there, pretty much sterilize everything. It's going to help the healing, help make it harder for that bacteria to reinfect your mouth when I don't see you. And your out-of-pocket's going to be $125. Your insurance is going to pick up most of it, but we need to address this infection. You could have the talk with them. Hey, you cut your arm. Would you leave that infection there? I never have anybody tell me no. And I worked in a fee for service. So for 12 years, nobody told me no because everybody was used to them it costing them.
Yeah.
But I quit that job and I quit my mentor. He just, he made me do this. He trained me to be an amazing hygienist. He trained me to take the laser to another level. So I told him, you know what? You trained me to leave you. But I went to other offices that were very insurance driven and they still never told me no. Even if I wanted to incorporate laser with an adult prophy, a laser bacteria reduction said, hey, I'm going to use the laser beforehand, help sterilize your pockets, kind of like an organic teeth cleaning, take the bacteria. It's kind of like, you eat organic meats because you're worried about the pesticides getting in your body. I'm going to use a laser with your cleaning to reduce all that bacteria. And because of your awesome insurance, it's only going to be $44. Normally this would cost $125. So I sometimes had that talk with them. If that boss I worked for at that office that did the insurance, that's how he wanted us to explain. And then patients were like, okay, that's fine with me. As long as you tell them why they need it. A big tip for verbalization that I teach wholeheartedly in my trainings is please don't bring that patient back and say, did you want to do laser? Did you want to do laser again? Just like, do you want to do fluoride? Say, I'm going to start with the laser. Then I'm going to check your gut.
We're not a spa.
Yep.
We're not a spa.
Yep. I'm going to do the laser. I'm going to do this and that. Well, why are we doing the laser today? Or I say, do you have any questions? Well, how much is the laser? The laser is going to be $44 and I'm recommending it for you because I looked at your chart and the last few times that you come in, you've had bleeding and you've had some pocketing in the past. And the laser is going to help protect your mouth from having that bacteria reattack between our visits. And I see that you don't normally floss on a regular basis. So the laser is also going to help with that. They love to hear that.
Yes. So that kind of leads me into aftercare. What does aftercare look like for patients who've just gone through a laser procedure?
Same type. You're talking about when you treat deeper pockets, like 5 and 6s, when you could have your initiated tip. You need to use a soft bristle brush. Curoprox makes a soft bristle brush you could use. I always say, just don't use your electric toothbrush. Just here, here's a soft bristle brush to use. You don't need to floss today. Take the night off. No water pick for 3 days. Some people, if you've had LANAP training or some other trainings, are like, don't use and I had the training when I got trained like 8 years ago. Don't use the water pick for 10 days. What do you think happened, Michelle, when I told people?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That was the worst part about laser. It was nothing to do with the laser, but I had all my patients stop using water pick. So I felt that in the long run, getting my patients to get back on the water pick all the time, that was harder than just, hey, don't use the water pick for 3 days. I had better results. I had pockets heal by not using the water pick for 3 days. So if we did an SRP on Monday, I want you to, on Thursday evening, you need to start back that water pick and just start on low and work your way back up to being over the next week, being on high. But they can, if you're going to be sore tonight and even tomorrow, I want you to take 2 to 4 Advil ibuprofen. I recommended that with my SRP. So if you don't use laser, that helps reduce inflammation and it makes the patient feel more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I even recommend that now for my patients with severe gingivitis. Like if they're 43, 46, I'm having a conversation about like what this is going to feel like tonight. You're probably going to know my name because you're going to be cussing it a little bit tonight, but it will get better. It will get better.
Yeah. And when they come back in, ask them, how did it feel? Like if they tell you, Michelle, I was sore for 4 or 5 days. I'm like, well, will you show me where you were sore? Oh my gosh, was it that 7mm pocket? I make a mental note. Okay, Joy, you were just in there a little too long. Let's just decrease the amount of time. I'm always trying to be a better clinician.
Yeah, so true. You were talking about like you'd code out this. Is there codes for lasers?
There are codes for all sorts of things. So
yes, there is. Yeah. I'm learning more and more about codes despite my, I don't really know about it, but I'm learning it because I got it.
No, I had to too, especially working in fee for service. I was like, okay, there's so many offices that really rely on insurance billing and coding. So right now there's no specific, this is just for laser. So we charge out the D4999, unspecified periodontal procedure by report. And guess what, Michelle? Insurances normally do not cover this. Oh, surprising, huh?
Big shock.
So there are things that, like for treating cold sores, they do cover the code for that. For desensitizing, we use a fluoride code. They do cover sometimes for that. But as long as you have, how do people get around this? Delta Dental specifically. So if you take Delta Dental, you need to read your insurance contract. And if your insurance contract says laser is inclusive, that's pretty much what they say.
It's like it's the scalar to your non-surgical.
That means like, hey, did you charge out more to ultrasonic and to probe and to floss and to polish? No, it's all included in the 1110 code. Same thing with laser. Delta's like, use your laser, but you just removed, plaque and bacteria. You can't charge more for it because it's part of that code. So in my trainings, we go through a couple different ways, but there's ways around it, I should just say. I'll just leave it at that. Otherwise, we're going to go down a whole 15, 20-minute rabbit hole of insurance. So there are ways to get coverages. There's plans that you can, and it's all about how do you approach the patient. And always add the 1 or 2 sentences, whatever you're recommending, whether it's laser or fluoride, make it about them. Like I'm recommending a fluoride because you've had a crown this year. You had a crown that leaked. We had to redo it. I want to protect those crown margins with the fluoride, and it's only going to be $40 rather than a new crown that's $1,500. Tell them why you're recommending it. So
no, I love that. I love that. And engage them. It's up to them. Like, this is all motivational interviewing. Give them the option. Let them be the expert in their life and and also we don't always understand their socioeconomic status. So if we can help guide them to make the better decision for their oral health, that's such a win-win in that case.
yeah, you speak of IPL, and I went to the skin doctor for the first time because I had a little mole on my shoulder. Luckily, I guess it was just like some cyst. They biopsied it, it went away. But she was like, oh, you can have IPL. And I don't know what that is. I teach dental lasers. I don't know about every laser on the market in skin and, medical fields, but I was intrigued, and I'm a freckled face girl. If you have not seen my picture, I have a lot of freckles all over my body. My dad's a redhead. She was like, we can use the laser and kind of, reduce a lot of your freckles. So do I want to pay $400 to do that? She introduced it to me. It's up to me if I want to do it. Did I choose it? Yes. And it was awful. It hurt so bad.
It does hurt so bad. Like, listen, anybody who's listening, they're like, IPL, tell me more about freckles and skin. Like, it feels like rubber bands slapping you in the skin 1 billion times. But the results.
That made me realize, as a clinician, please tell your patients whatever you're doing, like, hey, I'm going to use this ultrasonic for about, 10 minutes, not like 30 minutes. Like, I did not know if they were doing the IPL, that rubber band snapping, for 30 minutes. I was about ready to like punch the chick in the face. I'm like, please stop. It hurts so bad.
Oh yeah, it is. And I'm a solid 10 years of IPL, at least yearly. It is not for the weak. It is not.
No, but at least, your doctor told you, hey, we have this. This is what it'll do. It's up to you this is why I suggest it. Do you want clear skin? Yes, I do.
And I would even say another conversation to have with them if they've had a specific instrument used prior and you're using a different one, because being in the IPL world for 10 years, the lasers have gotten significantly better. So, my experiences before, like, I'm all coming in there with anxiety, and now I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. And same with like maybe new ultrasonics, or now I use airflow. Oh my gosh, what a dang game changer. But my patients were very used, because I was a ProfiJet girl. I loved ProfiJet, and it's a very different experience. So they feel like maybe they're getting the same thing, but they're like, wait a second. And then they're like, did you even do anything? Because I'm not I can feel my tongue. You just did a water bath in my mouth. What the heck? I'm like, okay, this is like having those conversations on all levels of your care is so important.
Especially if you are new to laser and you don't have a laser and you decide to go buy a laser after listening to this podcast. Oh my gosh, say, hey, we got a new laser. We have the newest laser on the market, and talk about why it's so special. Or, hey, guess what? This laser also, this is a big thing. So if you're using the laser on all your prophies and perioprophies, prior laser bacterial reduction, just pre-procedural, not a lick of it hurts. Honestly, probing is probably more uncomfortable. Like, they barely feel the laser in the mouth. I take this opportunity to talk about, well, guess what else my laser does? It desensitizes teeth. Oh my gosh, do I have a sensitive tooth? Let's address that today. It's just going to be an additional $40, but it'll, take it away. And we can talk about what it does, but it also, do you know anybody that gets those cold sores on the lip that last 2 weeks? We use the laser, bam, it's done. The laser is off your lip in 2 or 3 days. Wow, my neighbor, my sister, I've got new patients by just talking about what else the laser does. We do laser teeth whitening. Oh, well, tell me about that. Then you go down that road. So you can introduce your patient to different procedures just by saying, oh, I'm also excited about the laser. This is what it does, in a non-salesy way. And they'll tell you, oh, I have sensitivity, so.
And my gosh, y'all, market this. Like, if you are leaving to go to a course, put that on your social media, put that in a newsletter, like put that on your website. Like, that is amazing. Like, patients are going to be like, wait a second, what? When are you going to be trained in that? And they're going to come in for those things. Like, tell patients, because they don't know about your practice and what you offer sometimes. So My goodness. Market.
Front desk assistants, anybody can be listening to this. You don't have to be a hygienist or a doctor to use laser. So we didn't even talk about, and I won't spend too much time because this could once again go down another rabbit hole. But you can, assistants in a lot of states can do photobiomodulation where they use a different tip that's not a fiber, usually like a bigger tip, could be a whitening wand. But after the doctor does an extraction, what do we talk about? Stimulation. They just use this laser for 20 seconds and that assistant can easily tell the patient, I'm going to use my laser. It's going to count down. We're just going to do 20 seconds. You're not going to really feel anything. You may feel some warmth, but you're probably numb. So what that's going to do is stimulate the tissue to heal. We're not going to charge you more, but it's what we do in our office so that you have a better experience. That is what sets your office different than the office around this corner. So,
it's so true. Well, I mean, I think you've brought up multiple times, like we could go down these rabbit holes. So I think it's a really good time to talk about like your course and how people could come and learn from you a little bit more, because you do have an online course, correct?
Yes, we do. So my website's probably in your, what do you call that?
Show notes.
Show
You
notes.
can find it in the show notes.
In the show notes, advanceddentalhygiene.com. But I have across the spectrum. So there are 4 free CE courses where you can learn about laser. So kind of like a podcast, but you can watch a video. And
Yes.
there's ones on utilizing lasers in dental hygiene. There's ones that talk about COVID. There's another one that talks about what it can do in the dental field for dental assistants, for doctors and how they can cut tissue and all the new technology out there, why you would choose a laser over a scalpel or a blade. So there's 4 free CE. Anybody can take them. Doesn't matter what you do. You don't even have to be dental. Anybody can take it. My mom could take it. Your mom, nobody would want to. But you also have online, and all of my online courses come with live hands-on training, and it's done via Zoom. So people ask, well, what kind of online is this? Like, is it just, take at your own pace, or I have to take it at a certain time? Both options. There's an 8-hour program that you can take at your own pace. And my husband, who I don't talk about enough, is amazing. He's a videographer by trade.
Oh, wow.
Went to college for that and marketing. So if I haven't already marketed to you, it's coming. But
That's nice.
yeah, so he did these videos where you see me with a white background. He's spliced in my PowerPoint, spliced in videos. And the beauty of it is everybody learns at a different pace, where if you're one that, oh my gosh, I just heard Joy lecture about this, I want to hear it again, you can rewatch the video. You can watch it a million times. You have access to all the videos for a year. Let's say you start desensitizing a tooth and you're like, was I doing it correct? Let me go watch that 15-minute module on desensitizing. You sign up for a hands-on training, and it's like an hour and a half. We have them every week. We have them mornings, we have them evenings, we have them Fridays and Saturdays, if that works in your schedule. So we cater to any time that works for you, and you can take it at your own pace. Now, we didn't talk about the state regulations as much, but certain states like Texas and Kentucky require you to have a 12-hour course, and it has to be live. Well, I reached out to the boards, and you can do this live online. So about every couple months, we offer a live online course. Or if you just learn better by, okay, I'm going to block out my Friday and I'm going to attend Joy's training. I'm going to bring my laser. And if you don't have a laser, you're like, I want to attend online. I'm not by a live course that Joy offers. Okay, let me reach out to you and I can ship you a laser, or I can reach out to a local rep. I actually, right before jumping on here, stopped at FedEx and mailed out a laser to a girl in California that was like, hey, I pretty much am working with different offices. I don't feel comfortable having a local rep drop off a laser. I would just rather get training and not be associated. I was like, okay, let's get you a laser to your house. And we shipped it out. She'll ship it back to me next week when she's done. She's doing the training on Saturday.
Wow.
That's how fast.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well done on your course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then we have live in a city near you, where I'm trying to expand and the East Coast where you're at, but obviously I don't teach in South Carolina because nobody would come.
Yeah, exactly. That's all right. I'm leaving South Carolina, so I'll find you.
Yes, I did hear about that because I think we're the same age because we're going to be 40 next year. But yeah, so if you're traveling, you want to go to another state, we have them in the large cities like Boston, Chicago, all over Texas, Oklahoma, Denver. Look on my website, find a city. If you have at least 6 people, I will come to a city near you. Just call me up. We have them in Kansas City, St. Louis. Yeah.
Oh, that is great. So we will definitely put the website in the show notes. We'll make sure we put all of Joy's information there so you can find out how to get these courses, the free ones especially. My goodness, that's amazing. And I just want to say thank you for coming on and having this great conversation. I hope that I asked all the questions that our listeners are thinking about. If not, then they can take a course and get all those answers that
Michelle,
the questions that I might not have asked.
I think when I taught at RDH Under One Roof a couple years ago, I think somebody thought it was you. And I think it's because,
oh my gosh, I could totally see that.
We both have dark hair. They're like, I listen to you every morning on the way to work. And I'm like, I think you're talking about Michelle Strange. So I'm curious to listen to this podcast to see if we have similar voices, but kind of a raspy or...
And it depends on the day. Sometimes if I had too much wine, my twang from my South Carolina twang comes out, but I disguise it pretty well usually.
Well, I was like, I haven't been on that podcast, but I hope to be, fingers crossed. And it's a privilege to be on your podcast, Michelle.
Oh, no, it's a privilege to have you on.
You have the top people on. So I thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
We do. I must say we do. And that's why we invited you on because, and I just want to say cheers to our listeners. Like anybody who listens to a podcast about dental hygiene for an hour every week, and you've done that for years, like you are change makers. You are change makers. You are the badass hygienists that we need in our profession to really help our patients.
You're bettering yourself. Exactly. If you can learn one tidbit every time I listen to your podcast, you had one on vitamins. I was like, wow, what should I be taking? If you can better yourself, podcast, why not? You're on your way to work, you're on your way home. Why not better your career?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time and all of your knowledge. Thank you for being just the guru and our go-to person for this. And I highly encourage everybody to, if you're at a conference, go see Joy's conference. If she's speaking, and definitely check out her website. Thank you again, Joy. This was amazing. I learned so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, another great week, another great episode. We thank you all so much for listening each week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, whatever podcasting app you're using. Also, just a reminder, our guests are so fantastic that they love when you reach out. They love when you interact with them on social media, and you can interact with us on social media as well at Instagram or Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find us at A Tale of Two Hygienists. You can also go to our website, ataleoftwohygienist.com. And we would love for you to go there and subscribe for our newsletter. We have lots of stuff on our website. We have a learning center. You can search for any episode. This is an easy place for you to find the links for our CE courses and take the test. There's just so much more there. So head over to ataleoftwohygienist.com. And if you want, you can also send us an email. I'm Michelle at ataleoftwohygienist.com. And then there's Andrew, who is Andrew at ataleoftwohygienist.com. And we just want to say thank you so much. If you love this episode and you're loving the podcast, we would love for you to subscribe and leave us a review. And, 5-star, go ahead and do it. 5-star, just hit that 5-star and then leave us a review. We really appreciate it. We love reading them. It fuels our fire. And we just appreciate you guys so much. I think that's it, Andrew. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye, y'all.